the class. Today is the new chapter. Chapter talks about the great discoveries. Great discoveries in the world. Oh my God, who's there is Carlos Macias, he just arrived. So let me open the PowerPoint. The great voyages. Here it is. Okay, the new word. So this chapter is basically a very short chapter, but anyway, I just brought some videos to make it more interesting, you know. So let's begin. So this chapter talks about the voyage of discovery, the great voyage of discovery, los grandes viajes de descubrimiento. Okay, now the main idea, European had the desire, los europeos tenían el deseo y la oportunidad de explorar, desire and opportunity to explore. Interesting in discovery and exploration grew in Europe in the 1400s. Improvement in navigation tools, cartography, and shipbuilding allowed European sailors to go further than they ever had before. Why did people set off to explore the world in the 15th century? First, they wanted this resources, ellos querían más recursos, such as Asian spices, que eran las especies de los asiáticos. Italy and Egypt controlled these trade routes. Italia y Egipto controlaban esas rutas de viaje, changing very high price of price. Ahí está lo que le dije. In fact, pepper could cost more than a gold. Imagínense, el pepper creo que es el pimentón, costaba más que el oro. Otro tipo de especies que ellos querían. European otras razones por las cuales ellos querían navegar era porque ellos querían expandir el catolicismo, chicos. Okay? European Christians wanted to convert more people to their religion in counterattack the spread of Islam in Europe, Africa, and Asia. Now, these are the reasons why it caused these great voyages. Europeans became more curious about the world. One. Number two, people were looking for adventures. Number three, Europeans improved navigational tools, cartography, and shipbuildings. Number four, Europeans wanted resources, más recursos. And the last one, European Christians wanted to convert more people to Christianity. So those were the reasons why they wanted to make all this voyage, okay? The desire to learn more about the world grew, new inventions and knowledge spread rapidly. More and more European countries became interested in finding trade routes and settling new lands. Now these were the beginners of this. Portuguese and Spanish exploration. Men who never went on any sea voyage was responsible for much of Portuguese success on the sea, known as the Prince Henry the Navigator. Yo no conocía, primera vez que yo conozco Henry el Navegante. Yo no conocía este personaje, Henry el Navegante, porque él era portugués y entonces él fue que promovió estos viajes. He built an observatory and navigation school to teach sailors how to find their way. No lo conocía yo. After him came this guy, also Portuguese, Vasco da Gama. In 1488, a ship led by Bartolomé Diaz succeeded in sailing around the southern tip of Africa. The crew, tired and afraid of raging seas, forced Diaz to turn back. However, they had found a way around Africa. Encontraron una vía alrededor de África. So Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa and landed on the west coast of India in 1498. A sea route to Asia had been found. Una nueva ruta para el Asia había sido encontrada. Gracias a quién? A Vasco da Gama. Este señor Henry Navigator, que nunca navegó. Navigator y nunca navegó, qué ironía. Okay. Estas son las rutas de los portugueses. Partían todos de Lisboa. Recorrían por aquí. Hay unos que sí lograron entrar acá a Brasil, por lo menos Vasco da Gama sí conquistó acá a Brasil, y entonces por eso que allá en Brasil hablan portugués, por eso mismo, porque gracias a los portugueses que ellos conquistaron esta área acá de América, ¿ya? Después ellos también navegaron por acá, por debajo de África, Madagascar, redondeando, y llegaron entonces acá a la India. These are another European exploration from 1487 to 1580. Now, over here describe the colors of each of the countries who began those voyages. Spain is the red one. The purple is France. France, they went over. Remember in Canada, there's an area in Canada that they speak French, okay? Ottawa, I think, Ottawa, they speak French, and there are other towns in Canada that speak French because of they colonized those areas. And also England also, they visit some areas over here also, and they go around the world, like you see the orange, they go around the world. And also the Spanish, I think so. Yeah, the Spanish also. And the orange, which is the orange? Oh yeah, the England and the Spanish. Magellan debe ser Magellan. And Sir Francis Drake. Sir Francis Drake, él recorrió también todo el mundo. Aquí está Drake. Okay, let's move on. A new word. Okay, let's stop right here and then continue with the new word the next class, that is tomorrow. Okay, basically, as I said, these chapters is very short chapters. So right now I brought some videos. The first one is about Vasco da Gama. The second one is Henry the Navigator, who never navigate. The other one, Ferdinand Magallanes and Hernan Cortes. So these are the 4 videos that I brought for you. World history travel, and also this one. Let's begin with this one that summarizes everything, and then we'll go. Oh, let's finish. Let's take that as the finish, as the last one. Let's play this one.
Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama was a Portuguese explorer who was commander of the first ships to sail from Europe to India. Vasco da Gama was born sometime between 1460 and 1469 in Sines on the southwest coast of Portugal. Little is known about Vasco da Gama's early life, but it is believed that he was a student of mathematics. On 8th July 1497, da Gama led a fleet of 4 ships with a crew of 170 men from Lisbon. The distance he and his crew travelled from Europe to Africa, India and back was greater than what it would have been around the equator. Da Gama's trip to India consisted of several stops along the way in Africa. He also encountered problems from Muslim traders who did not want any interference with their already profitable trade routes. He finally reached Calicut on 20th May 1498. At first, Vasco da Gama and his trading was well received, but this only lasted a very short while. The king ordered him to pay a customs tax as would any other merchant. This strained the relations between the two. Da Gama left Calicut on August 1498. His expedition beat all expectations after he brought in cargo that was worth 60 times more than the cost of the expedition. He also took with him hostages which consisted of a few Nayars and 16 Mukuva fishermen. When Vasco da Gama arrived in Lisbon in September 1499, after having lost half his crew to scurvy, he received a hero's welcome and was rewarded well by the king. He was also bestowed with the title of Admiral of the Indian. On the 12th of February 1502, da Gama led the 4th Portuguese Armada to India, consisting of 15 ships and 800 men, with the objective of enforcing Portuguese interests in the east. On this voyage, da Gama killed hundreds of Muslims, often brutally, in order to demonstrate their power. From this trip, he returned triumphantly with silk, gold, and an established settlement. Vasco was sent to India again in 1524 to replace an incompetent viceroy. He contracted malaria not long after arriving in Goa and died in the city of Cochin on Christmas Eve. The state of Goa and the city of Cochin still exhibits the cultural influence of the Portuguese who landed as merchants and conquered these lands soon after. The Portuguese overseen territories of Goa existed for about 450 years before it was annexed by India in 1961.
Let's see about the Mr. Henry the Navigator who never navigate.
Prince Henry the Navigator was born in 1394, the fifth child of King John I of Portugal. Although he actually only went on 2 voyages, Prince Henry is known for opening the Age of Exploration, which lasted for 200 years and spread far beyond his native Portugal. At the time, people were largely unconcerned and unaware of countries and cultures beyond their own borders. Prince Henry was fascinated with the geography and riches of Africa. He was also interested in finding a better trade route for spices. Instead of exploring himself, he established the first school of navigation in 1418. He invited mapmakers, scientists, and navigators to come. These scholars trained the sailors to use compasses, astrolabes, and other important navigating instruments. He sponsored development of the caravel, a new type of ship for exploring. When the school was established, no one had sailed past Cape Borodor on the African coast. It was an area of violent storms and strong currents. Prince Henry sponsored ships to sail past that point. In 1434, Captain Gil Eanes finally succeeded. From 1444 to 1446, Prince Henry sponsored 40 ships to explore the west coast of Africa. He wanted to add to the geographic knowledge of the time, along with finding a trade route to the east and the discovery of riches. Prince Henry died in 1460, having lived to see Portugal become the world's leader in sea exploration.
Okay, now let's see Fernando Magallanes. Fernando Magallanes.
Ferdinand Magellan was the man who proved that the world was round.
Ferdinand Magellan showed extraordinary courage by setting out to sail around the globe when there were still many who believed the world was flat and that he would fall off.
Magellan was born in Sabrosa, Portugal around 1480 and studied navigation at an early age.
In 1505, Magellan traveled with the new arriving Portuguese viceroy to India and got his first taste of sea travel, the itch to explore. He moved around Southeast Asia and maybe even traveled as far as Indonesia and what were then known as the Spice Islands.
This is almost certainly where he first got the idea of approaching the Spice Islands by sailing west across the Atlantic rather than east around Africa and then into the Indian Ocean.
When Magellan returned to Europe, he tried to get financing for an expedition to find this new western route to Asia. Eventually traveling past what is today Argentina, Magellan found a route to the Pacific, which is now known as the Straits of Magellan.
Crossing into the Pacific, what Magellan had expected would be a relatively brief voyage to reach the eastern coast of Asia. Turned out to be 6 months in the open sea before they finally made landfall at Guam, at which point the sailors were, of course, near starvation.
When Magellan and his crew arrived in the Philippines, this was charted territory. They knew where they were.
While still in the Philippines, Magellan was killed by a poisoned arrow on April 27, 1521, in a battle with the locals. His crew continued on without him and finally reached Spain in September 1522, thus definitively proving that the world is round.
Magellan changed the way Europeans navigated. He increased the knowledge of seafaring navigation exponentially, and in the process made the world a much smaller place.
Very important character in the world. Okay, now let's see what's time. Let's watch this one first. Says the world history in the age of discovery.
Let's learn about the Age of Discovery. The beginning of the Age of Discovery dates back to the 15th century. Its center was Europe. In those days, commerce in the Mediterranean world, called trade with the Orient, continued to thrive by means of the trading activities of Italian and Muslim merchants. Northern Italian cities like Venice and Genoa were at the heart of this trade. The Italian merchants exchanged silver to get spices and other goods procured from Asia. However, when the Islamic nations of the Ottoman Empire began to expand, the free trade that had been possible up to that time became difficult. Also, European interest in Asia had increased. In the 13th century, there were repeated Mongol cavalry invasions. In addition, the publication of the Travels of Marco Polo stirred people's interest in Asia. Since it was believed that spices and immense quantities of gold lay waiting in the expanses of Asia, European merchants considered a direct route to Asia to be essential. Zeal for the propagation of Christianity was also on the rise, and missions were encouraged. Enthusiasm to proselytize the Christian faith continued to spread outward. The first trailblazer was Portugal. Portugal's Prince Henry the Navigator advanced to the western coast of Africa in the latter half of the 15th century. With the later voyages of Bartolomeu Diaz and Vasco da Gama that followed, a route to India was discovered through exploration eastward. Yet Henry himself did not participate in any voyages. He devoted his energy to providing the financial assistance necessary for the voyages and to the development of navigational technology. Not wanting to fall behind was Portugal's rival, Spain. Spain did the opposite of Portugal and headed for Asia by exploring to the west. In the process of aiming towards this goal, the New World was discovered by Columbus. The art of sea navigation was developed on voyages like these, which utilized compasses, nautical charts, and other tools, and the progress of the Age of Discovery picked up even more speed. Many countries in Europe set out for Asia or the New World. At the dawn of the 16th century, a fleet led by Magellan succeeded in humankind's first circumnavigation of the globe. So what kind of effect did these activities have on the world? First, there was a change in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe specialized in the grain industry in order to supply food to Western European society, which had grown in importance during the Age of Discovery. Because of this, there was an increase in agricultural slave laborers called serfs. Next, the New World. Spain, which had made inroads into the New World, adopted the encomienda system to secure a workforce and imposed slave labor on the local indigenous people. In this way, the world proceeded towards a division of labor, in which each region played its respective role. Perhaps the unification of the world brought about by the Age of Discovery can be said to have been the beginning of the modern, complex system in which we now live.
Hey guys, this is what I have for today. It's almost done, so I have enough time. Oh, let me see, Ana Cortez, how many minutes? It's 2 minutes. I think we can watch it.
Hernan Cortés is remembered for conquering the Aztec Empire and also for being the first governor of New Spain.
Hernán Cortés was born around 1485 in Medellin, Spain, to a noble family.
Hernán Cortés left Spain in 1504 for Hispaniola and then ends up in Cuba in 1511.
Cortés convinced the Cuban governor to appoint him captain general of a large expedition to establish a colony in Mexico in 1518.
In Mexico, Cortés establishes Veracruz and has himself elected as the captain general.
Cortés chose to scuttle his ships so that there would not be a turning back to Cuba.
At the time, what is now Mexico was governed by the Aztecs, and Cortés set out for their capital, Tenochtitlan.
When he arrives in the capital, he meets Moctezuma, the emperor of the Aztec Empire, gives him gifts, and then promptly takes him hostage.
Cortés was distracted, however, when he learned that the Cuban governor sent a force to confront him. Leaving Pedro de Alvarado in charge of Tenochtitlan while he dealt with this new threat, Cortés took the Cuban commander hostage and then convinced the troops to switch sides and join him.
When Hernán Cortés returns to Tenochtitlan, he finds Tenochtitlan up in arms because Pedro de Alvarado, during his absence, massacred several priests, committed atrocities.
Cortés insisted that Montezuma intervene. Montezuma faced the rioting crowds and was killed by a rock thrown by protesters.
The Spanish are then driven from the city with considerable losses in what is called the Noche Triste, or Sad Night. And Cortés then is forced to regroup.
With the help of many native allies who did not like the Aztecs, Cortés returned to Tenochtitlan in 1521, laid siege to the city, and finally conquered it.
In 1523, Cortés is named the Captain General of New Spain and Governor of Mexico.
Eventually, Cortés returned to exploring. He traveled through Central America and discovered California. In 1541, he retired to his estate in Sevilla, Spain, and died on December 2nd, 1547.
Cortés's legacy is a complex one. On one hand, he is the conqueror of Mexico. He brought and extended the Spanish Empire. But from the indigenous point of view, he was a mass murderer.
Conquering the Aztec Empire led to the destruction of one of the greatest civilizations that was known in the world at that time.
Hey guys,
Did as the Captain General.
stop right here. Okay guys, so we don't have time. It's 10:45. You have to go to your other class. Then we'll complete this chapter tomorrow. Okay? Bye guys. See ya. Take care.